Charley Samson was born in Nebraska and raised in Colorado. From an early age, classical music was in his blood.
They tell the story about Mozart being terrified of hearing the French horn, that he much preferred the violin. With Richard Strauss, it was just the reverse. The violin music terrified him, and his father, who was a horn player, he liked that a lot better.
His start in broadcasting came visiting a radio station.
I listened to the old KFML and to what was then KDEN-FM. Ben Bezoff had a show in high school. Went out to the station and said, I want to meet Ben Bezoff. Of course, these two college kids who were running everything pointed to a gigantic tape machine. He came in and recorded a whole month at a time. My first meeting with automation. And eventually asked the question, how did you get into radio? And they said, well, you got to have a license. So at 16, I had the third class FCC license. First job was in Boulder when I was in college at CU. At KRNW, but did radio all this time, especially classical, because you put on a long one and you can study. That was the idea. That moment when you open the mic for the first time and realize that even one person might be listening to you is terrifying, but I got over it. And then came down to Denver and worked at KTGM, Keep Tuned, good music.
He was slow to realize broadcasting was his profession.
Thought I was going to be a college professor, English literature. And I don't regret the degree in English. I mean, it certainly informed everything since. We could use more people that can write a coherent sentence.
He had stayed in touch with the people he'd met at KDEN and eventually went to work there at a special time.
It was the 200th anniversary of Beethoven's birth. Here I was, a former nerd who used to have Beethoven birthday parties. My mom would bake a cake and play all the symphonies in order. Well, that ended up with an idea we had on the air.
After leaving KVOD, he did several years of freelance work.
I was teaching music appreciation at Metropolitan State College. I had a program note business, little essays about the tunes for symphony orchestras. I became the host in these concerts by the Denver Brass and the Arapahoe Philharmonic, notably. Still doing that. Would do what they call pre-concert lectures, just anything for $1.
Even though we play a tremendous amount of recorded music here, I prefer the live experience. So my hidden agenda, not so hidden really, on the radio was to encourage people to go to things.
He also started as the word reader for the Colorado Spelling Bee, something he still does.
That's a kick. For these kids to get up and spell words and keep their wits about them is pretty amazing.
But after a few years out of radio, he made a return to the airwaves.
I was at the point of joining a demolition crew when the KCFR job came up. And when KCFR decided to pursue the idea of a national network, they knew they would need a local show of some kind, and that was me. The Colorado Spotlight Show, which was devoted to Colorado classical musicians. Ahoy there, Colorado music fans. I'm Charley Samson. This is Colorado Spotlight, which is our program devoted to Colorado performances, heard weeknights at 7 here on CPR Classical. My then boss, Ed Trudeau, said, well, let's go 5 days a week. And he said, look, we'll call it Colorado Spotlight. Its mission is to do Colorado classical performances. I want you to spend as much time on it as you need to. And get this, spend as much money as you want to. Unheard of. Unlimited budget.
He also hosted a regular feature called Charley Chats.
I thought the name was too cute, but then I'm the guy who invented Kerschel capers for the all Mozart show, so I should complain.
Johann Sebastian Bach, born into a family of musicians. He's another one you might suspect was not from the human gene pool, but was placed here from other galaxies. When Bach writes the art of the fugue, which is like everything he knows about fugue, by this point late in life he's blind. And let me tell you, what Bach knows about fugue, we're still figuring out.
I hope I never got too pompous. That's what we're trying to avoid. I particularly like to mess with the fundraising format. We talked about Mozart's finances, for example, which if there had been public radio then might have helped his career.
He retired from Colorado Public Radio in 2016 after 24 years on the air there. Overall, he was on Denver radio hosting classical music programming for over 40 years.
Yeah, to have two great, long-lasting jobs in radio is unheard of, you're right. and I'm lucky.
The broadcast pioneers of Colorado are proud to welcome Charley Samson into the Broadcast Pioneers Hall of Fame.